Welcome to the deep dive. We're tackling a big one, a legend that I think captures everyone's imagination, Atlantis.
Oh, yeah.
You picture this amazing golden city, this perfect society, just swallowed by the ocean, wrath of the gods,
That's such a powerful image.
It really is. And it's fueled searching and speculation for, well, millennia. So today we want to ask that core question. Could Atlantis, actually have existed?
It's a big one.
We're going to try and cut through some of the maybe wilder theories, go back to the actual source and see if there's any scientific basis for it, or maybe none at all. So let's unpack this enigma.
And what's fascinating, is how this whole thing, this global search, really started from a philosophical text. Myth is huge, obviously. But the real hook is that tiny possibility, right? Could there be some truth? A city sinking in, what was it, a single day and night?
Yeah, exactly.
To even begin to answer that, you have to go back to Plato. Because he didn't frame it as, just a story. He claimed it was true, passed down from Egyptian priest to his ancestor Solon.
Right, that's the crucial claim.
That's what keeps the hope alive, that maybe it wasn't just an allegory. And that's where we need to start.
Okay, so Plato's dialogues, Timaeus and Chrysippus, around 360 BCE. Let's dive in there. What did he actually say? Because the scale he describes is just immense.
It really is. He paints this picture of a massive island continent. He says, larger than Libya and Asia together.
Whoa.
Yeah, and located beyond the Pillars of Hercules. So outside the Strait of Gibraltar, out in the Atlantic.
Okay, so location pinned, sort of.
And it wasn't just an island. It was the heart of this huge empire, stretching all over, he claimed. And the capital city itself, well, that's where the iconic image comes from.
The rings.
Exactly. Concentric rings of land and water connected by this big canal going out to sea. Just incredible engineering, supposedly.
And the people, the Atlanteans.
This ends up beside the sea god. So semi-divine origins, they have incredible wealth, advanced technology. He even mentions this weird metal, orichalcum. Said it glowed.
Orichalcum. Yeah, I remember that detail. It sounds almost magical. And initially they were good, right? Virtuous.
That's how Plato sets it up. They started out noble, living in this kind of utopia. But, that's often how these stories go.
Oh, the fall from grace.
Precisely. Plato describes this moral decline. The Atlanteans became arrogant, power-hungry, greedy. They started trying to conquer everyone, which brought them into conflict with ancient Athens, Plato's ideal city, naturally.
Convenient?
Well, yes. But this moral failure, this hubris, is key to the story. Because it angers the gods.
And then comes the catastrophe.
Yeah. The ultimate punishment. In a single day and a single night of misfortune, he says, massive earthquakes, floods. The whole island just sinks, gone forever beneath waves.
Oh, a single day and night. That's incredibly specific. And he gives a date, too, doesn't he? That feels important if we're looking for evidence.
He does, and it's probably the most critical detail for anyone trying to find a real Atlantis. Plato says it sank 9,000 years before his ancestor Solon visited Egypt.
Okay, so do the math. That puts it around.
Around 9600 BCE, give or take.
9600 BCE.
Yeah, and that date, it's fundamental. It's the benchmark against which any scientific check has to be measured. Makes the whole thing even more mysterious, actually, because it's so precise, yet so long ago.
Okay, 9600 BCE. Let's hang on to that date, because this is where the scientific perspective really comes in, and it raises some serious questions. Finding a literal Atlantis matching all that has been, well, pretty fruitless.
To say the least.
The general consensus in science is that it's a myth, a philosophical tool, and the first big hurdle is just basic geology, right?
Exactly. Plate tectonics is a huge problem for the story. I mean, the way the Earth's crust works, these massive plates moving slowly over millions of years.
Yeah, centimeters a year or something like that.
Right. Continents, or even huge islands like Plato describes, larger than Libya and Asia, they just don't vanish underwater in a day. It's not how geology works. There's no known mechanism for that kind of rapid sinking on that scale.
So the idea of the ocean just swallowing a continent whole?
Doesn't hold up. We've mapped the Atlantic seabed pretty thoroughly. We see things like the mid-Atlantic ridge formed by slow seafloor spreading. There's just no sign of a massive sunken landmass where Plato suggested.
Geologically impossible then. Okay. But what about the timing? That 9600 BCE date? Even if it didn't sink that way, could a civilization have existed then?
That date is maybe an even bigger problem, archaeologically speaking. Think about 9600 BCE. What were humans doing?
Stone Age. End of the last ice age, maybe?
Pretty much. We're talking the late Paleolithic, early Mesolithic. People were mostly nomadic hunter-gatherers. living in small groups, maybe basic settlements, using stone tools.
So definitely not building complex cities with concentric canals and advanced metallurgy like orichalcum.
Not even close.
Hmm.
Large-scale agriculture, metalworking, writing, empires, none of that existed yet. Real civilization, cities, states that comes much, much later, like around 4000 BCE in Mesopotamia,
Yeah.
millennia later.
So the idea of this super advanced civilization existing way back then and then vanishing without leaving any archaeological trace. No tools, no ruins, nothing.
It's just not tenable.
Right.
From an archaeological standpoint, it makes no sense.
Which brings us back to Plato's purpose. If it wasn't history, why tell this incredibly detailed story? What was he trying to do?
And that's the key question, isn't it? Was he recording history or teaching a lesson? Most scholars who study Plato think it's definitely the latter. Atlantis wasn't real geography, it was a political allegory.
An allegory for what?
For his ideas about the perfect state versus a corrupt one, he used Athens, his idealized Athens, as the model of virtue, moderation, justice, and Atlantis. Atlantis was the counterpoint. It represented excessive wealth, unchecked ambition, power leading to corruption, and ultimately self-destruction.
A cautionary tale, basically.
Exactly, a very powerful one. And it's kind of telling, that the dialogue Critias, where he describes Atlantis in detail, it just stops abruptly, right before the final divine punishment is described.
Oh, interesting. He never finished it.
Nope. Which suggests maybe the goal wasn't the historical narrative itself, but the philosophical point about hubris and decay. His genius was making the setting so vivid that people wanted it to be real, making them engage with his ideas about society and morality on a deeper level.
Okay, so scientifically, archaeologically, a literal Atlantis matching Plato seems impossible. But the legend is still so powerful, people still search. Is there any chance it's not just philosophy? Could it be like a distorted memory of something real that happened?
Now that's where things get interesting again. Because while the literal Atlantis is out, the idea of a historical echo persists. Could Plato's story be a garbled, exaggerated account of a real catastrophe that wiped out some advanced ancient culture?
Okay, I like where this is going, like a historical detective story.
Kind of. And if you're looking for a real-world candidate, the strongest, most scientifically plausible one, the Minoan civilization on Crete and the eruption of the volcano on Thera.
The Minoans. Right, they were Bronze Age. Crete, tell us about them. Were they advanced enough to maybe fit the bill?
They were remarkably advanced for their time, yeah. Flourishing roughly between 2700 and 1450 BCE. They built these huge, complex palaces. Knossos is the famous one. They had incredible art, sophisticated plumbing, even a form of writing.
Linear A, right? Still undeciphered mostly.
That's the one. And they were a major sea power, a thalassocracy, controlling trade across the Aegean and Mediterranean. So definitely an advanced seafaring culture. That part kind of fits Plato's description of a powerful island civilization.
Okay, advanced civilization, check. What about the catastrophe part, the sinking?
Around 1600 BCE, the volcano on the island of Thera, modern Santorini, just north of Crete, absolutely blew its top. It was one of the biggest volcanic eruptions in recorded history.
Santorini, I've seen pictures of the caldera. That was from this eruption.
That's it. The eruption obliterated the center of Thera, but the effects were much wider. It triggered enormous tsunamis that slammed into the northern coast of Crete.
So it hit the Minoans hard.
Devastatingly hard. It would have wiped out coastal towns, ports, ships. It didn't make Crete sink overnight, obviously. And the Minoan civilization limped on for a while before being overtaken by the Mycenaeans. But the eruption and its aftermath were undoubtedly a massive blow, a civilization-altering catastrophe.
Okay, wow. So you have an advanced island civilization hit by a colossal natural disaster involving the sea. The parallels are definitely there. But how do we get from that event around 1600 BCE to Plato writing about something 9,000 years earlier? That's a huge time gap.
It is, but here's how the pieces might connect. First, the core elements match. Sophisticated island culture, check. Destruction by geological cataclysm involving earthquakes, volcanoes, tsunamis, check. The story could have been passed down orally for centuries, maybe, from Minoan survivors to the Mycenaeans who took over Crete, then maybe to the Egyptians who had contact with the Aegean world, and eventually, Solon hears a version of it in Egypt.
Okay, oral tradition, things get exaggerated over time.
Exactly. Details warp, scale increases. And now, the date thing. That massive 9,000-year discrepancy. There's a really neat potential explanation.
Let me guess, translation error.
Bingo. It's proposed that when Solon heard the story from the Egyptian priests, or somewhere along the transmission line, there might have been a confusion between the Egyptian hieroglyphs for 100 and 1,000.
Seriously? A misplaced zero, basically.
Pretty much. If the original time frame was actually 900 years before Solon, not 9,000, that puts the event smack bang in the Minoan era, around 1500, 1600 BCE. One simple mistake in transcription could multiply the timeline by 10.
That actually makes a lot of sense. It turns this impossible timeline into something plausible. Wow.
It's the most compelling theory connecting the myth to a real historical event anyway. It ticks a lot of boxes.
It really does. Of course, people have proposed other locations too, right? It wasn't just the Minoans people looked at.
Oh, definitely. The allure of Atlantis has led people all over. Some pointed to Tartessos in southern Spain. Rich Bronze Age culture near the Pillars of Hercules, mysterious and possibly linked to tsunamis.
Yeah.
Seems plausible on the surface,
Uh-huh.
but no evidence of a whole sunken city or continent. Doesn't match the ring description. Then there's Sardinia with its cool stone towers, the Nuraghi. Again, impressive, but not Plato's Atlantis.
What about Doggerland? That actually did sink.
It did, under the North Sea after the Ice Age. But Doggerland was submerged gradually over thousands of years as sea levels rose, and the people living there were Mesolithic hunter-gatherers, not some advanced empire. So again, it doesn't really fit the specifics of Plato's story. The Minoan-Thera connection remains the strongest contender for a historical inspiration.
Okay, so summing this all up, Plato's literal Atlantis giant continent, Atlantic Ocean, 9600 BCE, super advanced text, scientifically, that's a no-go.
Yeah, the geology and archaeology just don't support it. It works best understood as Plato intended it, a philosophical parable about hubris and the ideal state.
But the idea of it, the myth itself, might have roots in something real.
That seems very likely. The story's endurance suggests it taps into some deep cultural memory, maybe of great catastrophes, and the Thera eruption hitting the Minoans. That provides the most convincing explanation for that memory, even if Plato embellished it massively for his own purposes.
So Atlantis isn't really a lost place on a map, but more like a story woven into history, a powerful cautionary tale.
Exactly. It exists not at the bottom of the ocean, but in our collective imagination as this symbol of a golden age lost to pride and ambition. It reminds us how fragile even advanced societies can be.
And it makes you wonder, doesn't it? What other ancient myths and legends might be echoes, however distorted, of real events and real warnings from our distant past? How much history is hidden inside the stories we tell?